Welcome to the deep dive. Our job is simple. Take the most complex research, distill the crucial knowledge, and make sure you walk away feeling thoroughly informed. Fast.
And today, we are wrestling with a really huge question, one that's been around for, well, forever in philosophy and science.
Right. Are you just a biological machine, programmed by your genes, your environment? Or is there something more?
Exactly. Or do you actually possess the conscious power to change your own brain and maybe even change your destiny because of that?
That's the core dilemma, yeah. And our sources today, they really center around Jeffrey Schwartz and Sharon Begley's work. It really throws a wrench into that old materialist deterministic view.
It absolutely does.
Right.
Their research challenges that long-held assumption. So our mission here is to explore this deep connection, the link between the mind and the brain. We're focusing hard on neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity. Because for so long, the brain was seen as like fixed hardware, right?
Yeah.
Installed at birth, couldn't really change much after childhood.
That view is just completely gone now. Our sources really show why. It's quite a revolution in thinking.
So the key takeaway then, the main thing for you listening to grab onto from this whole deep dive.
It's that the research is overwhelming now. Your brain can and does rewire itself powerfully.
And not just when you're a kid. This is happening throughout your entire life, which is, well, it's huge.
It really is. It opens doors for treating things like dyslexia, paralysis. But it goes further. It suggests you can actively shape your character, your habits.
Okay, but before we get into all that potential, we need to understand what came before, right? The old way of thinking.
Exactly. We have to set the stage, understand the doctrine this is all overthrowing, the historical old guard philosophy, you could call it.
Okay, so let's rewind way back. 17th century, René Descartes, he saw the body as basically an automaton, a complex machine.
And that line of thought really ramped up with Enlightenment thinkers like Lemaitre. He literally wrote a book called L'Homme Machine, Machine Man.
Machine Man. So the idea was we're just physical mechanisms, clocks, basically.
Pretty much. And that viewpoint became, well, foundational for a lot of modern neuroscience. The dominant belief for a long time was brain is mind. Consciousness. That's just a side effect, maybe even an illusion.
That's like that sci-fi trope, isn't it?
Yeah.
The alien commander asking about humans.
Right. Made of meat, and the commander's baffled. Meat? But what does the thinking? And the answer comes back.
The meat thinks. Yeah. Thinking meat.
Thinking meat. It sounds simple, maybe elegant to some scientists, but the sources hammer this point. Even if you map every single neuron firing, you hit a wall.
The explanatory gap. That's the term philosophers use, right?
Exactly. Or the hard problem, Chalmers calls it. How does all that electrochemical activity, neurons firing and patterns, actually become a subjective feeling?
Like seeing red or feeling pain, the experience itself.
Precisely. You can map the neural state, say for tasting a lemon, find the activity in the brain, but that map isn't the feeling of tartness, the experience of sour. That's qualia.
And for a long time, neuroscience kind of sidestepped that, just focused on mapping the activity.
In many ways, yes. Finding where verbal working memory lit up the left temporal lobe, for instance, was seen as the answer. The job was done.
And the word mind itself became problematic.
Yeah, it almost became obsolete, even a bit embarrassing in some really sophisticated research circles, because mind implied something non-physical, something spooky acting on the machine.
But that feeling, that qualia, it doesn't go away just because you can't map it easily.
Nope. And the strictly materialist view, especially the one tied to a fixed, unchanging brain, couldn't bridge that gap. But then came the evidence that just cracked that model wide open.
Neuroplasticity, the brain changing itself.
Yes. This is the core idea, the brain's ability to fundamentally reorganize its connections based on experience. It's not fixed hardware at all.
And the sources point to some dramatic early evidence, like the Silver Spring Monkey study.
Ah, yes. A famous and quite controversial study. These macaques had the sensory nerves from one limb severed deafferentation.
So no feeling coming from that arm or leg.
Right. And the old view, based on Sherringtonian reflexology, was that adult brain wiring was fixed, set in stone. So the part of the cortex that used to get signals from that limb, it should have just gone dark, silent forever.
But that's not what happened.
Not at all. Edward Taub found the complete opposite. Years later, that cortical area hadn't gone silent. It had been dramatically reorganized. Cortical remapping, they call it.
So what was it doing instead?
It started processing input from nearby body parts, like the face or the torso. The brain tissue basically got repurposed because the original input was gone. It adapted.
Wow. Okay, a fixed machine definitely doesn't do that. So how did Taub take that finding and apply it to humans? Stroke patients, specifically.
Well, he observed that many stroke patients develop something called learned non-use. Even if there's some function left in, say, an arm, it's just easier not to use it, so they stop trying.
And the brain area for that arm starts to shrink or get repurposed, just like the monkeys.
Kind of, yes. Taub realized, based on that cortical remapping idea, that you had to force the brain to pay attention to that affected limb again. You had to drive the change.
And that led to constraint-induced movement therapy, CI therapy.
Exactly. They'd restrain the patient's good arm, sometimes for weeks, forcing them to use the partially paralyzed one for everyday tasks. It sounds simple, maybe even harsh, but
But it worked.
it worked remarkably well. This intense, focused use caused massive use-dependent cortical reorganization. People regained function years after everyone thought recovery had plateaued. It's powerful proof that what you do sculpts your brain.
But plasticity isn't always good news, is it? The sources mention something called focal hand dystonia.
Right, this is the flip side. Plasticity gone wrong. Think about professional musicians, like concert pianists.
Okay, intense practice, lots of rapid finger movements.
Exactly. Extremely rapid, complex, and often simultaneous stimulation of adjacent fingers. Playing Mozart's really demanding fast passages, for example.
What happens in the brain?
Well, that constant, intense, simultaneous input causes the separate brain maps for those fingers to kind of blur together. They merge, or smudge, as the source puts it.
So the brain loses the fine distinction between, say, the index and middle finger representation.
Precisely. And that loss of distinct mapping leads directly to a loss of fine motor control. The fingers don't obey commands properly. That's dystonia.
That sounds devastating for a musician. So how do you fix that? If practice caused it, did they just have to stop playing?
That would be the old, maybe behaviorist approach. But understanding the plasticity mechanism allows for a targeted fix. The therapy's focused on separating those simultaneous inputs.
How?
Things like specific sensor motor retraining exercises, or even just mentally imagining moving the fingers separately, distinctly, without the simultaneous firing.
And that worked. It could unsmudge the maps.
Yes, that focused mental effort, differentiating the signals, successfully resegregated the cortical maps. Musicians could regain control. It shows that focused mental attention can reverse maladaptive plasticity.
Okay, this is fascinating because it leads us away from purely external things, like injury or physical practice, towards something internal, towards conscious choice driving the changes.
Exactly. Top-down plasticity. The mind telling the brain what to rewire.
And this is where Dr. Schwartz's work with OCD comes in big time.
Yes, his work with obsessive-compulsive disorder is a prime example. OCD involves those intrusive, unwanted thoughts and the compulsive behaviors.
Right, like constant checking or washing.
And neurologically, it's linked to an overactive brain circuit. Key parts are the orbital frontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, and a deeper structure called the caudate nucleus.
Okay, science terms. What do they do together functionally?
Think of it like the brain's error detection system or its gear shift. It's supposed to let you know if something's wrong, then let you move on. In OCD, that circuit gets stuck. It's like an alarm bell that won't shut off. Schwartz called it the brain lock.
Brain lock, I like that. And the older treatments, the behaviorist ones?
They were often quite mechanical. Exposure therapy, sometimes really tough, like forcing someone with contamination fears to touch public toilets.
Yeah.
It often missed the patient's internal state, their mind.
So Schwartz thought the key was engaging the mind itself.
Yes. He argued you had to teach the patient to consciously use other parts of their brain to override that stuck circuit. This led him to develop his 4 steps.
The 4 steps, okay. What are they?
It's a framework for self-directed neuroplasticity. First, label. Recognize the intrusive thought or urge for what it is, an obsessive thought, a compulsive urge, a symptom of OCD.
Okay, name it to tame it, sort of.
Kind of. Step 2, reattribute. Remind yourself why you're having this urge. It's not really you, it's the faulty brain circuit, the brain lock acting up. It's a false alarm.
Detach from it, intellectually.
Exactly. Then, crucially, step 3, refocus. This is where the active work comes in. Consciously shift your attention away from the OCD urge and onto something else, something constructive and preferably enjoyable, even for just a few minutes.
Like going for a walk, listening to music, doing a puzzle.
Anything positive that engages your mind differently. And this isn't just distraction, it's actively engaging a different healthy brain circuit. You're choosing where to put your attention.
And the fourth step.
Revalue. Over time, as you consistently practice the first three steps, you begin to devalue the obsessive thought or urge. You see it clearly as meaningless brain noise, not an important command. That revaluation reinforces the whole process.
So the real engine here is that conscious choice to shift attention, the mental effort involved in refocusing.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating because this has deep echoes in other traditions, like Buddhist mindfulness.
Mindfulness, how so?
Well, think about practices like naked attention, as described by Nyanaponika. The goal is to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment, without getting swept away, just seeing them as mental events.
Realizing that thoughts are not facts.
Precisely. That mindful awareness, that conscious choice not to engage with the intrusive thought is very similar to the refocus step. It's about reclaiming control over your attention.
And we actually have brain scan evidence showing this mental effort has a real physical effect, don't we? The passing MPDT scans.
Yes, those are quite telling. They scanned people performing tasks when a subject was doing an automatic task and then consciously decided to stop and shift their focus, applying deliberate mental effort.
What happened in the brain?
The prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex lit up. They became highly metabolically active. These are your brain's executive control centers involved in planning and attention shifting.
So the act of willing yourself to pay attention differently literally changes brain activity in the highest control centers.
That's the key finding. Conscious will, mental effort, isn't just some vague idea. It has a direct, measurable activating effect on the brain, forcing it to change its own patterns.
Which brings us right back to that massive question. Free will. If our conscious effort can change the brain, does that mean we escape determinism? Or is it still just complex mechanics? William James said effort's function is just to keep unwelcome thoughts away.
Right. And this is where Benjamin Libet's famous and often debated experiments come into play. He wanted to time conscious decisions.
Okay, what does he find?
It was pretty startling at first. He measured brain activity, specifically the readiness potential, which signals the brain preparing for a voluntary movement. He found this potential started building about 350 milliseconds before the person reported consciously deciding to move.
Wait, so the brain starts preparing to act before I feel like I've decided to act.
That's what the data showed, which understandably led many to conclude free will must be an illusion. If the brain acts first, maybe consciousness is just watching the replay.
That feels deeply counterintuitive. Did Libet himself agree with that interpretation?
Not entirely. It forced him into a kind of compromise. He suggested that while we might not consciously initiate the action, we retain a window of opportunity, maybe the last 100 milliseconds or so before the action happens, to veto it.
So not free will to start, but free won't to stop.
Exactly, the power of veto. He pointed out that this actually aligns well with many ethical and moral systems, which often focus on inhibition, the thou shalt nots. It's about controlling impulses that arise.
Okay, so we have the conscious mind through attention and maybe this veto power directing things. But how does a non-physical intention, like I will refocus, actually cause a physical change in the quantum soup of the brain? That's the final hurdle.
And that's where physicist Henry Stapp's ideas, drawing on quantum mechanics, become really relevant.
Okay, quantum mechanics. This usually gets tricky fast.
It does, but let's break it down. Classical physics, the old Newtonian view, is deterministic, predictable cause and effect. But quantum mechanics, QM, operates on probabilities.
Right. Things aren't certain until they're measured or observed.
Exactly. And crucially, the brain's machinery, down at the level of ion channels controlling neurotransmitter release involving things like calcium ions, operates at a scale where quantum effects can be significant.
So the synapse firing isn't just a simple on-off switch.
According to this view, no. Before the firing decision is made, that synapse exists in a quantum superposition, a fuzzy state of multiple possibilities simultaneously, like release neurotransmitters and don't release neurotransmitter, both existing as probabilities.
A cloud of potential actions.
Precisely. The brain has multiple paths it could take based on quantum probabilities. So how does one path get chosen? How does the fuzzy possibility become a definite physical action?
This is where conscious attention comes back in.
Yes, through something called the quantum Zeno effect. It's a bit like trying to watch a quantum pot boil. The act of constantly observing it can prevent it from changing state.
How does that apply to attention?
Think of your focused attention, like in Schwartz's refocus step, as posing a rapid series of questions to the relevant brain circuits at the quantum level. Am I focusing on the healthy behavior? Am I holding that focus?
Fascinating.
Yes, yes.
Like taking super fast snapshots of the brain state you want.
That's a good analogy. This sustained mental focus, this rapid measurement by attention, essentially holds the desired quantum state in place. It prevents the probabilities from resolving into the unwanted action, like the OCD compulsion, and helps collapse the wave function into the chosen healthy brain state.
Whoa. So in this model, attention isn't just noticing things. It's an active force that selects reality from quantum possibilities within the brain.
That's the truly radical implication. The mind's focused attention has genuine causal power, consistent with the laws of physics, specifically quantum physics, to shape the physical brain. It's choosing which potential brain state becomes actual.
This is a massive paradigm shift then. The mind isn't just some ghost in the machine or useless fluff.
Not at all. It's an active participant, a causal agent. What we're seeing is this amazing convergence. Neuroscience showing the brain as plastic, mindfulness and cognitive therapy showing how to direct that plasticity through focused attention, and quantum physics offering a potential mechanism for how mental intention can have physical effects.
Directed mental power, actively sculpting your neural circuits.
That's the essence of it.
So, wrapping this up, what does this really mean for you listening right now? This isn't just abstract science, is it?
Absolutely not. It has profound implications. Think about ideas like moral responsibility or personal freedom. The old deterministic view really undermined those. If you're just a machine running a program, where's the responsibility?
But if your conscious choices, your focused effort, can physically change your brain and influence your actions.
Then you're back in the driver's seat, at least partially. You're not just the passive heir of your genes and your past experiences. The sources strongly suggest you are the owner of your intent.
That effort you make to pay attention, to refocus, to choose the different path, it has the physical power to reshape the brain circuits governing your behavior, your habits, even your character over time.
It's empowering, really. And the sources leave us with a final thought, drawing a parallel to history. Major scientific leaps often happen when seemingly separate fields connected.
Like Newton linking celestial and terrestrial mechanics, or Maxwell linking electricity, magnetism, and light.
Right. And this new synthesis, connecting consciousness, neuroscience, and physics, the mind and the brain, it forces us to reconsider the nature of knowledge itself. Maybe the observer isn't separate from the observed.
The idea that your focused attention doesn't just perceive the world, but potentially participates in shaping it, even at the quantum level within your own head.
It's a truly powerful, maybe even unsettling thought to reflect on, that your attention holds far more power than we ever imagined.